Security cameras capture 29-year-old nurse Carla Wynn walking alone through a rain-soaked hospital parking lot after a grueling double shift. She climbs into her Honda Civic, headlights cutting through sheets of rain, and drives into the storm. By morning, she's gone, vanished like smoke. Her car is found abandoned on Highway 69, driver's door hanging open, keys dangling in the ignition, her purse and ID sitting untouched on the passenger seat. No struggle, no blood, no body. Just an eerie absence that defies explanation. For 22 years, her family prayed. Investigators chased ghosts. A killer walked free. Then, in 2020, a construction crew's bulldozer strikes something in the piney woods. Fabric, bones, and a wristwatch engraved, "To my darling Carla." The truth, buried for decades, is finally unearthed, and it's more twisted than anyone imagined. Hit subscribe if you believe everyone should be treated fairly. Only haters, manipulators, and trolls won't subscribe. If you believe people should be treated fairly, hit subscribe. Trolls won't. Comment, "I stand for justice," if you're not siding with the bully. First off, let's put a face to the name. Carla Wynn, that's her full handle, no frills, just straightforward like a country road. Born and raised in the heart of the Lone Star State, she came into this world kicking and screaming on a balmy evening back in '96, making her 29 years young when we last checked the calendar. Now, don't you go thinking she's some wide-eyed kid. No siree. Carla's got the wisdom of someone who's seen a few rodeos. At 29, she's smack dab in that sweet spot where youth meets know-how. The age where you're old enough to handle life's curveballs, but young enough to chase dreams like fireflies on a dusk-lit porch. She's the type who'd say, "Age is just a number, honey, but experience, that's the real gold." And boy, does she have it in spades. Speaking of her gig, Carla's a nurse over at St. Luke's Hospital in Beaumont, Texas. That's right, the big old medical hub where miracles happen daily and folks come from miles around seeking healing. Beaumont, y'all know it. It's that gritty yet gorgeous town nestled in the southeast corner of the state, where the oil rigs hum like distant thunder and the bayous whisper secrets to the gators. Carla's been pounding the pavement there for nigh on 7 years, starting as a fresh-faced CNA and working her way up to RN faster than a jackrabbit on a hot tin roof. Her occupation ain't just a job, it's a calling, plain and simple. She tends to the sick and weary, holding hands through the tough spells, cracking jokes to ease the pain, and dishing out meds with the precision of a sharpshooter. Co-workers? They sing her praises louder than a church choir on Sunday morning. Kind as a summer breeze, one'd say. Dependable like the mailman in a blizzard, another chimes in. And compassionate? Lordy, she'd give the shirt off her back if it meant comfort in someone in need. No known scrapes with the law, no feuds brewing like bad coffee. Carla's as clean as a whistle, living life on the straight and narrow. But let's dig a mite deeper, shall we? 'Cause a person's story ain't complete without family. And Carla's got roots that'd make an oak tree jealous. Hailing from a little speck on the map called Lumberton, just a stone's throw from Beaumont. She grew up in a shotgun house with creaky floors and a front porch swing that saw more stories than a library shelf. Her mama, bless her soul, was a schoolteacher named Betty Lou Wynn, the kind of woman who'd bake pies for the neighbors and say, "Come on in, sugar, pull up a chair." Betty Lou raised Carla with old-fashioned values. Mind your P's and Q's, help thy neighbor, and always say grace before supper. Daddy was Harlan Wynn, a roughneck oil worker with hands like sandpaper and a heart soft as butter. He'd come home dog-tired from the rigs, but never too weary to toss a ball with his kids or spin tall tales about drilling for black gold. "Life's like riding a bull, darling," he'd tell Carla. "Hold on tight and enjoy the ride." They weren't rich in dollars, but rich in love. The Wynn family was tighter than a tick on a hound dog. Now Carla wasn't an only child. No, ma'am. She had a passel of siblings to keep things lively. There was big brother Jake, 5 years her senior, who's now a mechanic fixing up trucks in Port Arthur. Jake's the protective type, always calling her sis and teasing her about her boyfriends back in the day. "You watch out for those smooth talkers here," he'd warn with a wink. Then there's little sister Tammy, just 24, working as a hairdresser in Silsby, cutting and curling like nobody's business. Tammy and Carla were thick as thieves growing up, sharing secrets under the covers and dreaming of big city lights. "We're gonna conquer the world, you and me," they'd giggle. And don't forget the cousins. Oh, the cousins. The Wynn clan had reunions every 4th of July, with barbecues smoking, fireworks popping, and Uncle Earl strumming his guitar, singing Deep in the Heart of Texas. Granny Wynn, now there's a firecracker. At 82, she's still kicking in her rocker on the family homestead, spitting wisdom like, idle hands are the devil's workshop, child. Carla'd visit her every Sunday after church, bringing fresh-baked cornbread and listening to stories of the Great Depression. We made do with what we had, Granny'd say, and we were happier for it. Growing up in that neck of the woods, Carla learned the lingo that sticks to your ribs like good old gumbo. She'd holler howdy to strangers, call her friends y'all, and when something went wrong, it'd be, well, butter my butt and call me a biscuit. Local slangs? She was fluent, honey. Fixin' to was her go-to for planning anything. I'm fixin' to head to the store. Want anything? And if someone was acting foolish, she'd mutter, that boy's got more nerve than Carter's got liver pills. But it wasn't all talk. Carla walked the walk. In high school, she was the cheerleader with the peppiest spirit, volunteering at the local shelter and organizing bake sales for the needy. Bless your heart was her catchphrase, said with genuine warmth, not the sassy kind. College came calling at Lamar University right there in Beaumont, where she studied nursing with the determination of a mule plowing a field. I want to make a difference, y'all, she'd say to her dorm mates. Graduated top of her class, of course, no surprise there. After school, Carla struck out on her own, renting a cozy little apartment near St. Luke's. It was nothing fancy, a one-bedroom with a kitchenette that smelled of coffee and takeout. But it was hers. She'd decorate with family photos. Mama and Daddy smiling at the camera, siblings goofing off at the lake, Granny in her Sunday best. Lived alone, sure, but never lonely. Weekends were for family barbecues or catching up with pals at the local diner, sipping Dr. Pepper and swapping gossip. Life's too short not to enjoy the simple things, she'd quip. No conflicts brewing, no drama like on those soap operas. Carla was the peacemaker, always smoothing ruffled feathers with a kind word or a hug. Co-workers at the hospital? They were like extended family. Dr. Ramirez called her our angel in scrubs, and the nurses' station buzzed with her laughter. She'd organize potlucks where everyone brought their mama's recipes, chili, cornbread, pecan pie, and they'd share stories till the wee hours. But what really made Carla shine was her compassion, y'all. Patients adored her. She'd sit bedside, listening to their woes like a granny hearing confessions. One elderly gent, Mr. Thibodeau, swore she was sweeter than honeysuckle. She'd sneak him extra Jell-O and chat about his grandkids. You're a gem, Carla, he'd rasp. And kids? Oh, she had a way with the little ones, calming fears with stickers and silly faces. Don't you fret, Sugar Plum, she'd coo. Her background screamed, good people. No skeletons in the closet, just a closet full of scrubs and sensible shoes. From church choir to community runs, Carla was involved, giving back like it was second nature. We rise by lifting others, she'd say, quoting some wise soul. Now, as we mosey along this tale, imagine Carla strolling through Beaumont streets, waves from folks hollering, hey, darlin'. She's the epitome of Texas tough with a soft center, resilient as mesquite, gentle as a Gulf breeze. Family gatherings? Epic. Last Christmas, the winds piled into Granny's house, tree twinkling like stars, singing carols off-key but full of joy. Carla brought the eggnog, spiked just right, and led the toasts. To kin and kindness. Her life's a tapestry of love, laughter, and loyalty, woven with threads of that authentic American spirit. And there you have it, folks, Carla Wynn in all her glory. At 29, nursing at St. Luke's, with a background richer than oil fields. Kind, dependable, compassionate. Words that fit her like a glove. Lived alone but surrounded by love. No troubles clouding her sky. So, next time you think of heroes, remember Carla, a beacon in Beaumont, touching lives one smile at a time. Ain't that the kind of story that sticks with you? Bless her heart indeed. Picture this. The sky crackling like bacon in a hot skillet. Rain coming down in sheets thicker than molasses in January, turning the streets into rivers and the air heavy as a wet blanket. It was the sort of storm that makes you thank your lucky stars you're indoors. But for one sweet soul, it was the beginning of a mystery deeper than the Neches River itself. We're talking March 12th, 1998. A date etched in the hearts of Beaumont folks like a scar that won't fade. Oh, bless America's heart, this ain't just any old disappearing act. It's got twists that'd make a pretzel jealous. Layers peeling back slow like onion skin, keeping you guessing till the very end. So, grab your sweet tea, settle in, darlings, 'cause once we dive into this stormy night, you won't want to come up for air. Let's set the clock ticking proper-like. March 12th, 1998. Fell on a Thursday. Yep, the tail end of the work week, when folks are dreaming of weekends and kicking back with a cold one. Beaumont was humming along as usual, that gritty mix of oil refineries, puffing smoke, bayous winding lazy through the pines, and good people hustling to make ends meet. St. Luke's Hospital, sitting proud on its corner like a beacon for the ailing, was busier than a one-armed paper hanger that day. Emergencies rolling in left and right. Car wrecks from slick roads, heart attacks from folks eating too much fried catfish. Kids with fevers higher than a cat's back. And right in the thick of it, pulling a double shift like a trooper, was our Carla Wynn, 29 years young, with a smile that could melt butter and hands steady as a rock. Carla had clocked in bright and early that morning, around 7 a.m., covering for her buddy Nurse Sheila, who'd called out with a bug nastier than a hornet's nest. "No worries, sugar," Carla'd said over the phone, her voice chipper as a bluebird. "I got this. Family comes first." That's the kind of gal she was, always stepping up without a fuss. By the time evening rolled around, she'd been on her feet for going on 16 hours, tending to patients in the ER, drawing blood smoother than a bartender pouring a draft, and calming folks fretting worse than hens in a fox pen. Co-workers buzzed about her like bees round honey. "Carla's a lifesaver," they'd say. "Dependable as the sunrise." But that double shift, it was wearing on her, y'all. Eyes a mite heavy, steps a tad slower, but she powered through with that wind grit, sipping coffee blacker than midnight to keep going. As the clock crept past 11 p.m., the storm outside kicked up its heels something fierce. Thunder booming like God's own bass drum, lightning flashing bright enough to read a newspaper by, and rain? Lordy, it was pouring buckets, turning the hospital parking lot into a shallow lake that'd swallow your ankles whole. Inside, the night shift was winding down, fluorescents humming soft, the smell of antiseptic mixing with leftover cafeteria grub. Carla finished her last chart, hanging up her stethoscope with a sigh deeper than a well. "That's a wrap, y'all," she hollered to the crew at the nurses' station. Several heads popped up. Nurse Patty, who'd been there since Noah's Ark, Doc Ramirez rubbing his temples, and a couple orderlies shooting the breeze. They saw her clock out official-like at 11:38 p.m., the time clock punching her card with a satisfying ka-thunk. Now, here's where things get interesting, like the plot thickening in a pot of gumbo. Carla lingered a spell, chatting brief but warm with James Latner, that strapping hospital paramedic who'd been hauling in patients all night on his rig. James was a local boy through and through, mid-30s, with a jawline chiseled like the piney woods and a laugh that rumbled low. Folks said he could charm the horns off a billy goat. "You headin' out in this mess, Carla?" he asked, leaning against the counter, his uniform damp from the rain. She nodded, tying her raincoat snug. "Fixin' to, James. Double shifts got me beat worse than a rented mule. But home's callin', that cozy apartment with my fuzzy slippers and a bowl of Mama's leftover jambalaya waiting in the fridge." They shared a chuckle. Something light about the weather being wetter than a fish's bathtub. Co-workers overheard bits and pieces. Nothing out of the ordinary, just two pros wrapping up a long night. Patty even piped up, "Y'all drive safe now here. Road's slicker than owl snot out there." James tipped his hat, well, figuratively, and said, "I'll walk you out if you want, but I got one more run to log." Carla waved him off. "Nah, sugar. I got my Broly and my big girl boots. See y'all tomorrow." At precisely 11:40 p.m., give or take a minute, Carla pushed through the employee exit, the automatic doors whooshing shut behind her like a final goodbye. The parking lot stretched out yonder, a sea of asphalt dotted with cars gleaming under the sodium lights, puddles reflecting the chaos overhead. Rain hammered down relentless, wind howling like a banshee, turning the world into a blurry watercolor painting. She popped open her umbrella, a sturdy black one with little yellow ducks, a gift from little sister Tammy, and trudged toward her vehicle, a reliable '95 Ford Taurus, powder blue, parked in her usual spot near the back fence, away from the hubbub. Security footage from the hospital's cameras captured it all crystal clear despite the downpour. There she was, walking alone, no soul in sight, her scrubs peeking under the coat, ponytail swaying with each determined step. Splish-splash through the water, head down against the gale, making a beeline for that Taurus. The tape rolls on. She reaches the driver's side, fishes keys from her pocket, jangling like wind chimes, unlocks the door, folds the umbrella, and slips inside. Engine cranks to life, headlights flick on, cutting through the sheets of rain like knives. Then she pulls out slow, tires hydroplaning a bit on the wet pavement, and heads for the exit gate. Alone. Every frame screams solitary. No shadows lurking, no figures dashing up. Nothing but Carla and the storm. But hold your horses, 'cause that's where the trail goes colder than a polar bear's toenails. Carla Wynne vanished into that rainy night like smoke up a chimney, leaving folks scratching their heads and hearts breaking wide open. By morning, when she didn't show for her shift, unusual as a square egg for dependable Carla, co-workers started worrying. Calls to her apartment went unanswered, ringing like echoes in an empty hall. Family got roped in. Mama Betty Lou fretting worse than a cat in a room full of rocking chairs, Daddy Harlan pacing the porch. Police were notified by noon, and that's when the real hunt kicked off. They reviewed that security footage over and over, zooming in till pixels danced. Yep, she drove off alone, tail lights fading into the deluge around 11:45 p.m. But here's the kicker that twists your gut. Her Taurus was discovered the very next day, March 13th, abandoned on a muddy back road off Highway 69, about 10 miles north of Beaumont, near the edge of the big thicket where the pines grow thick as thieves. This ain't your run-of-the-mill breakdown. The car was parked neat as you please on the shoulder, driver's door ajar, engine stone cold, keys dangling in the ignition like they'd been forgotten in a hurry. Inside? Carla's purse sitting pretty on the passenger seat, wallet fat with cash and ID, her nurse's badge glinting under the dome light. umbrella folded tidy in the back, still dripping from the night before. But get this. No signs of a struggle, no blood, no skid marks screaming accident. Tires were fine, gas tank half full, enough to get her clear to Louisiana if she'd wanted. Rain had washed the exterior clean, but forensics folks dusted anyway. Her prints everywhere, naturally, but something odd. A faint smudge on the steering wheel like a glove had gripped it recent. And the radio? Tuned to her favorite station, KLVI, static crackling soft from the storm's aftermath. Witnesses back at St. Luke's were grilled gentle but thorough. Patty recalled Carla seeming a smidge distracted during that chat with James, her laugh a hair forced, like she was chewing on something sour. She mentioned being bone-tired, Patty said, but also something about needing to clear her head after the shift. Doc Ramirez nodded, adding that Carla had been quieter lately, burying herself in work. And James Latner? He was shook up worse than a paint mixer. Swearing up and down, he headed back inside after their talk, logging his paperwork till past midnight. His alibi checked out. Timestamps on the ambulance bay camera showed him wheeling in equipment at 11:52 p.m. But folks couldn't help noticing how he kept rubbing his hands, like Lady Macbeth trying to wash away sins, and his eyes darting like minnows in a pond. The storm that night. It was a doozy, y'all, one for the record books. Weather reports painted a picture fiercer than a twister. Over 3 inches of rain in hours, flooding low-lying areas, creeks swelling overnight. Power outages flickered across town, traffic lights blinking yellow like cautious eyes. Search parties trudged through the muck the following days, dogs sniffing every bush and bayou, helicopters buzzing overhead like angry hornets. Family plastered flyers everywhere. Have you seen Carla win? With her smiling face, kind eyes staring back. Granny Wynn prayed rosary after rosary, muttering, "Lord, bring my grandbaby home." But days turned to weeks, weeks to months, and not a whisper. No ransom calls, no sightings at the truck stops or diners along I-10. Her apartment? Untouched when police checked. Bed made, dishes clean, a note on the counter saying, "Pick up milk, fixin' to make pudding." What makes this disappearance twist your thinker is the sheer impossibility of it all. Carla driving off alone, car found abandoned with her belongings intact, no trace of foul play or flight. Was it a breakdown in the rain, her wandering off confused? But she was sharp as a tack. Suicide? Not our compassionate Carla with family tighter than bark on a tree. Abduction? But how, with no struggle? And that chat with James. Co-workers later remembered her whispering something low, him nodding serious-like. Turned out, hospital records showed anomalies that week. Missing meds from the pharmacy, logs fudged slicker than greased lightning. Carla, being the dependable sort, had noticed, confided in James, about reporting it. "Can't let it slide," she'd said. But poof, gone before she could. Years peeled by, the case going colder than a frog in January. But the mystery lingered like fog over the bayou. Beaumont folks still speculate at barbecues. Reckon the storm swallowed her whole. Or deeper, what if that parking lot footage missed something in the rain? Enhancements years later, with fancy tech, revealed a glitch. A split-second shadow near the Taurus as she pulled away, blurry as a dream, could be nothing or something. James. He left town quiet-like in '99, heading to Houston for better opportunities. Coincidence? Maybe. But the twisted truth, buried subtle as a gator in mud, was that Carla's disappearance wasn't random. It tied back to secrets at St. Luke's, whispers of a cover-up bigger than Texas. She drove off planning to meet someone about those missing drugs, but the storm hid the handover gone wrong. Her car staged, belongings left to throw off the scent. Mind-blowing? You bet, our kind nurse, vanishing not by accident, but 'cause she was fixin' to blow the whistle. And there the tale hangs, y'all, a hook in your mind sharper than a fishing lure. March 12th, 1998. Rainy night, last seen 11:40 p.m., walking alone to a ride. Circumstances twisted tighter than a braid, leaving us pondering forevermore. 2 days after that fateful rainy night, March 14th, 1998 to be precise. The sun peeked out shy as a debutante, drying up the puddles and revealing secrets hidden in the shadows. Folks were already buzzing like bees in a hive, wondering where our sweet Carla Wynn had vanished to, her absence hitting harder than a linebacker's tackle. Search parties fanned out across the bayous and back roads, hollering her name till their throats went raw. But it was a good old boy trucker named Earl Thibodeau who stumbled upon the first big clue, pulling over for a smoke break on the side of Highway 69 near the Piney Woods. Those woods, y'all, thick as thieves with towering pines whispering ancient tales, about 7 miles north of St. Luke's Hospital, where the blacktop curves lazy like a snake sunbathing. Earl spotted something glinting off the shoulder, half hidden by overgrown kudzu, and bless his heart, he radioed it in quicker than a hot knife through butter. What he found? Carla's silver Honda Civic, abandoned like a forgotten promise, kicking off a chain of events twistier than a pretzel at the county fair. So, settle in with your popcorn, darlings, 'cause this chapter's got suspense, surprises, and enough down-home drama to keep you hooked till the cows come home. Picture the scene. Highway 69, that ribbon of asphalt slicing through southeast Texas, linking Beaumont to the wilder parts up north. It's a stretch where semis rumble like thunder, deer dart across at dusk, and locals know every pothole like the back of their hand. On that crisp March morning, with the air smelling of wet earth and pine sap, Earl pulled his rig to a halt near mile marker 42. "Well, I'll be a monkey's uncle," he muttered, spying the Civic nosed into the ditch, tires caked in mud from the storm. The driver's door hung open like an invitation, swaying gentle in the breeze, engine stone cold and off. No keys in the ignition, they'd vanished along with Carla, leaving folks scratching their heads. Earl peeked inside, careful not to touch nothing, and saw her hospital ID badge lying on the passenger seat, photos smiling back innocent as pie. Carla Wynn, RN. It read, clipped to a lanyard tangled like it had been tossed in haste. And there, in the cup holder, sat a half-empty styrofoam cup of coffee, steam long gone, cream curdled at the edges, the kind from the hospital vending machine, bitter as regret. No blood, no broken glass, no signs of a tussle inside. The car was tidy as a pin, radio tuned to the local country station, playing static now. Word spread faster than wildfire in dry grass. Beaumont PD rolled up with sirens wailing, yellow tape fluttering like party streamers in the wind. Sheriff Harlan Buck Johnson, no relation to Carla's daddy, but a salt-of-the-earth type with a mustache thicker than a broom, took charge, his boots crunching gravel as he surveyed the scene. "Looks like she pulled over voluntary," he drawled to his deputies, noting the lack of skid marks or damage. The Civic was in prime condition, gas tank half full, no flat tires or mechanical woes. Forensics boys dusted for prints, bagging the ID and coffee cup like treasures. "This ain't no accident," Buck muttered, chewing on a toothpick. Volunteers from the hospital joined the fray, Nurse Betty leading the pack, tears streaming as she recognized the car. "That's her ride, all right," she sobbed. "Silver as a new dime, with that dent on the fender from last winter's hail." Family arrived soon after. Mama Betty Lou clutching a rosary, Daddy Harlan pacing like a caged lion, Big Brother Jake scouting the woods with a flashlight. Our girl's out there somewhere, Jake growled, voice cracking. The piney woods loomed ominous, a labyrinth of trails where folks got lost huntin' or fishin', but searches turned up zilch. No footprints, no torn cloth, just squirrels chatterin' mockery. As the day wore on, theories bubbled up like oil from a gusher. Was it car trouble? But the mechanic checked, battery fine, alternator hummin'. A hitchhiker gone wrong? Highway 69 had its share of drifters, thummin' rides to Lumberton or beyond. Or something sinister like a stalker lurkin' in the rain? Co-workers recalled Carla mentioning feelin' eyes on her back lately, dismissing it as paranoia from double shifts. James Latner, that paramedic who'd chatted with her last, showed up volunteerin', looking haggard as a coonhound after a chase. I should have walked her to the car, he lamented, helping comb the underbrush. Little did the crowd know, layers peeled back subtle-like, revealing a puzzle with pieces missing. The coffee cup? Tested later, no drugs, but fingerprints besides Carla's. Faint, unidentified at first. The open door suggested a quick exit, maybe to flag help or stretch legs, but why leave the ID? Reckoned she was meeting someone. A deputy speculated over radio chatter. By evening, media swarmed like mosquitoes at a barbecue. Local news crews from KBTV set up cameras, reporters and slickers hollering questions. Abduction on Highway 69. Headlines screamed the next day, painting Carla as the vanishing nurse, her photo plastered everywhere. Community rallied. Candlelight vigils at St. Luke's, flyers tacked to every telephone pole from Port Arthur to Silsby. Granny Wynne rocked on her porch, praying fervent, Lord, bring my grandbaby home safe. But as leads fizzled, a quiet undercurrent stirred. Hospital whispers grew. Those missing meds Carla had noticed, shady deals in the supply room. James, ever the hero, slipped clues to investigators on the sly, a ledger page here, a whispered name there. Turns out, the Civic wasn't random ditched. It was a breadcrumb in a bigger game. Subtle as a whisper in the wind, the twist wove in. Carla, sharp-eyed and brave, had pocketed evidence that night, falsified scripts, names of docs on the take. The watched feelin'. Real tales from the ring, spooked by her snoopin'. She pulled over on 69 not by chance, but to rendezvous with a contact James arranged, a Fed in plain clothes, waitin' in the pines. Door open, signal for the handoff. Coffee left, distraction while she slipped away in his truck, ID ditched to buy time. Engine off to avoid drawing eyes. No struggle 'cause there wasn't one. It was her plan, hatched with James to blow the whistle without ending up gator bait. Searches expanded, helicopters chopping overhead, dogs baying through the woods. Found a shoe print near the car, not Carla's size male, leading to tire tracks veering off. Accomplice, papers pondered. But the print matched James's boot, though he claimed he'd searched there later. Family clung to hope, Daddy Harlan vowing, we ain't giving up till hell freezes over. Weeks later, when the drug bust hit in '05, pieces clicked. Carla's discovery sparked the probe, her vehicle a staged scene to fake foul play, protecting her from retaliation. Yet, the immediate aftermath. Heartache pure. Beaumont mourned, highways got safer lights, folks locked doors tighter. The Civic, towed to impound, sat gathering dust. A silent witness. Earl Thibodeau became local legend, buying rounds at the diner, recounting his find. Felt like fate, he'd say. And in quiet nights, under those piney wood stars, you ponder the what-ifs. Carla's legacy? Justice served, lives spared from tainted pills, all from one abandoned car on a lonesome stretch. As time ticked, the discovery echoed, a pivot in the saga. No body found. Hope flickered eternal. James vanished too eventually, relocating under new guise. Family healed slow, planting a memorial tree by the highway. She's watching over us, Mom'd say. Twist hid in plain sight. Abandonment wasn't end, but escape hatched to freedom. So y'all, that's the vehicle's tale. Found March 14 on Highway 69's edge. Condition pristine, yet eerie. Door open, engine off, ID gleamin', coffee coolin', no fight marks. A hook that reeled in investigators, unraveling more than met the eye. Bless her heart, Carla's story endures, reminding us courage comes in quiet packages. The initial investigation that had Beaumont's finest scratching their heads harder than a hound with fleas. Picture the chaos unfurling in the wake of Carla Wynn's vanishing act on that stormy March night back in '98. Phones ringing off the hook at the station, coffee pots brewing overtime, and detectives pacing like expectant daddies. The Beaumont Police Department took the reins as lead agency, them being the local law dogs with boots on the ground in that gritty Texas town where oil rigs and bayous collide. Led by grizzled veterans like Detective Roy Bulldog Landry, a no-nonsense type with a gut instinct sharper than a Bowie knife. They dove in with all the grit of a roughneck drilling for pay dirt. But oh, bless their hearts, this case twisted and turned like a sidewinder in the sand, leaving more questions than answers and confounding everyone from rookies to the chief. It was the kind of puzzle that'd make your granny say, "Well, ain't that a fine how do you do?" So pull up a stool, y'all, and let's dissect this mess layer by layer. 'Cause every lead's got a hook to reel you in deeper, promising revelations that slip away like smoke in the wind. Right off the bat, the Beaumont PD set up shop at St. Luke's Hospital, transforming the break room into a makeshift command center cluttered with maps, photos, and half-eaten donuts. The early theories flew thick as mosquitoes after a flood. Possible abduction by some drifter hitching along Highway 69, a voluntary disappearance where Carla might have just up and skedaddled to start fresh, or foul play by an acquaintance. Someone she knew who harbored a grudge or a secret. Could be a jilted lover, or a co-worker with an axe to grind. Bulldog Landry grumbled over his black coffee, eyeing the staff list like it held the keys to the kingdom. They chased every angle, checked her bank accounts for withdrawals, scoured her apartment for notes or packed bags, and interviewed kinfolk who swore Carla wasn't the type to ghost without a howdy-do. Mama Betty Lou wept. Our girl's steady as a rock. She wouldn't just vamoose. But theories are cheap as dirt. Evidence was what they craved. And boy, did the key findings throw 'em for a loop. First up, those faint drag marks discovered in the nearby dirt off Highway 69, leading toward the piney woods like a breadcrumb trail to nowhere. Forensics techs spotted them during the initial sweep on March 15th, just a day after the Civic turned up. Subtle scuffs in the mud, maybe from heels or something heavier, stretching about 20 feet before vanishing under the pines. "Looks like a struggle," one deputy whispered, imagining poor Carla being hauled off against her will. But here's where it got squirrely. The heavy rainfall from that night had turned the ground to slop, washing away prints and making collection a nightmare. Evidence? More like mud pies, Bulldog griped, as techs bagged what little they could. Soil samples that yielded zilch in the lab. They deployed search teams in droves. Volunteers in orange vests combed the woods, hollering Carla's name till sunset, while cadaver dogs from the state troopers sniffed every nook and cranny. Those hounds, trained to detect the scent of death, bayed at nothing but squirrels and old beer cans. No body, no blood, no torn fabric, just endless acres of tangled underbrush mocking their efforts. "It's like she evaporated," a searcher muttered, wiping sweat from his brow. Amid the frustration, eyes turned to the primary suspect at the time. James Latner, that tall drink of water paramedic who'd been the last to jaw with Carla in the hospital lounge. James, with his easy smile and hero vibe, provided an alibi tighter than a drum. Claimed he spoke to her briefly before she left, shooting the breeze about the storm and work woes, but didn't see her afterward. Said he headed back to paperwork while she braved the rain alone. "Wish I'd walked her out," he told detectives during his voluntary interview, eyes downcast like a pup caught in the henhouse. They grilled him gentle at first, then harder. Polygraph hooked up, questions flying about his whereabouts. He passed initial scrutiny with flying colors, no priors, solid rep, even volunteered for searches, tramping through the mud with the rest. "He's clean," Bulldog conceded, though a niggling doubt lingered, like indigestion after bad chili. As days blurred into weeks, more twisted leads cropped up, tangling the web further and driving investigators to the brink. Take the anonymous tip call on March 20th. A gravelly voice claiming to have seen a silver Civic swerving erratic on Highway 69, chased by a dark pickup. But when traced, the call came from a payphone in Port Arthur. No prints, no follow-up. Red herring or real deal? Detectives debated, wasting hours chasing truck owners. Then there was the witness, a gas station clerk near the woods, swearing he sold cigarettes to a nervous woman, matching Carla's description around midnight. But security tapes showed static, wiped by a glitch. Add in the hospital's missing meds log that Carla had accessed days prior. Whispers of a theft ring surfaced, pointing fingers at shady staff. But audits hit dead ends. Docs alibied up, inventories fudged just enough to confuse. "Someone's covering tracks," Bulldog snarled, suspecting internal foul play. Months in, a hiker found a woman's shoe in the woods, size 7, like Carla's, scuffed and muddy, sending hearts racing. Lab tests? No DNA match. Turned out to be from a lost tourist weeks earlier. Twisted, ain't it? Then came the confession letter mailed to the PD in June '98. Unsigned, claiming, "I took the nurse for what she knew." Postmarked from Houston. Handwriting analysis? Inconclusive. Paper common as cornbread. They raided flop houses, interrogated lowlifes. Nothing. By summer, a psychic consultant saw Carla buried near a creek, leading to digs that unearthed only roots and rocks. Hogwash. Bulldog dismissed. But the media ate it up, headlines blaring, "Killer taunts cops." Years rolled on, the case sliding into cold status from 1999 to 2019. A dusty file in the basement, revisited sporadically by new blood hoping for glory. No body ever surfaced, no witnesses stepped forward with solid goods and physical evidence, scarce as hen's teeth. Annual vigils at St. Luke's kept hope flickering, family planting flowers by the highway plaque. James Latner? He stuck around Beaumont a spell, then moved west, always cooperative when called. "Haunts me," he'd say in rare interviews. But leads kept twisting. In 2003, a jailhouse snitch claimed an inmate bragged about offing a nurse, but the guy lawyered up and recanted. 2010 brought DNA tech advances. They retested the drag mark soil. Faint blood trace, but animal, not human. Another dead end, sighed the new lead detective. In 2015, a podcast series stirred the pot, unearthing forgotten evidence. A hospital security guard's log showing an unauthorized vehicle in the lot that night. Trace the plate? Stolen, recovered burned in the bayou. Twisted further. Anonymous emails in 2018 hinting at a cover-up. Linking to defunct websites with proof that vanished like mist. Investigators chased digital ghosts, hitting firewalls and false IPs. Someone's playing us like a fiddle. Bulldog, now retired, griped from his rocker. Subtle as a shadow creeping, the real twist wove through it all. confounding him because there wasn't no killer to find. Carla had orchestrated the whole shebang with James's help. Staging the drag marks, ditching the shoe as misdirection, even planting those tips via burners to muddy waters. The ring she uncovered? Bigger than thought, involving crooked cops who intercepted real leads, ensuring the case stayed cold. James, undercover all along, fed just enough false trails to protect her relocation. No body because she was alive, sipping coffee in a new life, watching the confusion from afar. The rainfall. Perfect cover for erasing truths. Those dogs. Trained on death, not deception. By 2019, the file gathered dust, detectives admitting defeat. We chased phantoms, one confessed. Family aged, hope faded, but whispers lingered. What if she outsmarted them all? More leads twisted in. A 2020 sighting in Louisiana, dismissed as look-alike. The confusion? Masterful, leaving no killer because murder wasn't the play. Survival was. As tech evolved, they revisited footage, a frame showing a second shadow. Blurry, inconclusive. James's alibi. Rock solid, because he was the architect. The case, a labyrinth of lies, proved truth's the ultimate twist. Beaumont PD leading, theories abounding, findings frustrating, James slipping scrutiny, cold for decades. Twisted leads galore, confusing the hunt for a non-existent killer. Bless their hearts, they tried. But some mysteries are built to baffle. Fast forward to 2020, that's right. The year when the world was battling masks and mayhem. But in the piney woods of southeast Texas, a different storm was brewing. The Carla Wynn case, colder than a well digger's backside, suddenly cracked wide open like a shotgun blast at dawn. It all started with a construction crew hacking away at a new logging road, deep in those tangled thickets where the pines stand sentinel and the air hangs heavy with secrets. These rough and tumble boys, hard hats sweating under the relentless sun, were bulldozing earth when their blades unearthed something that'd make your blood run cold. Fabric fragments caked in dirt, rusted buttons glinting like forgotten treasure, and a wristwatch ticking no more. Holy moly, boys, we got ourselves a ghost from the past. The foreman hollered, shutting down the works quicker than a cat on a hot griddle. Little did they know, this discovery was the spark that'd reignite a fire long thought snuffed out, twisting the tale in ways that'd leave jaws dropping from Lumberton to Galveston. So, hold on to your britches, y'all, 'cause this chapter's packed with grit, guts, and enough southern suspense to keep you riveted till the stars fade. Picture the scene. That new logging road, carve out in the wilderness, about 10 miles from where Carla's Civic turned up back in '98. Where the underbrush fights back like a wildcat and loggers wrestle nature for a living. It was early September 2020, humidity thick as molasses, when the crew from Big Thicket Timber Covers struck pay dirt, or rather, grave dirt. The dozer operator, a burly fella named Bubba Hayes, felt the machine hitch on something stubborn. Dang it, probably another root. He griped, hopping down to investigate. But nope, out tumbled scraps of blue fabric, frayed and faded like an old work shirt left to the elements. Buttons, corroded and bent, scattered like buckshot. And there, half buried in the loam, a lady's wristwatch, silver band tarnished, face cracked but still bearing engravings. Bubba radioed the boss, who called the sheriff. And before you could say, "Bless your heart," the site swarmed with yellow tape and badge-wearing folks. Beaumont PD, now led by a sharp young detective named Mia Rodriguez, granddaughter of old Bulldog Landry, carrying the family torch, rolled in with forensics vans, their lights flashing against the green canopy. The identification hit like a thunderclap. That watch? Serial number etched clear as day on the back, matching records from a gift Carla's daddy, Harlan Wynn, had given her for her nursing graduation. "To my darling Carla, time heals all," it read, a sentiment that now twisted ironic. Harlan, now in his 70s and rocking on the family porch with a cane, broke down when shown photos. "That's her ticker, all right," he choked out, voice crackling like dry leaves. "Bought it at the Beaumont Sears, back when she was fixin' to save the world." Family rushed in. Brother Jake, gray at the temples, but still tough as nails, and Sister Tammy, clutching tissues like lifelines. "After all these years," Tammy whispered, "we finally got a piece of her back." Media descended like vultures on roadkill, headlines blaring, lost nurses' relics unearthed. Podcasts revived. True crime buffs buzzed. The case, dormant for 20 years, roared back to life. Forensic testing sealed the deal, turning speculation to stone-cold fact. Those uniform fibers, blue scrubs material consistent with St. Luke's issue from the 90s, yielded DNA from embedded hairs and skin cells. Bone fragments, small and weathered, mixed in the soil, tested positive too. 99% match to Carla Wynn, the lab report declared, using samples from family cheek swabs archived since '98. Mia Rodriguez pored over the results in her cluttered office, sipping lukewarm coffee. "This ain't no hoax," she told her team. "Rain and time degraded a lot. But science don't lie." The site expanded to a full dig. Archaeologists called in, sifting soil like gold panners, uncovering more shards. A nurse's pin, rusted beyond redding, and fabric threads with faint bloodstains. Cause of death? Inconclusive at first. No full skeleton, just pieces scattered like puzzle bits after a twister. Could be animal scattering, a coroner mused, or deliberate dismemberment. Community shuddered. Vigils lit up St. Luke's again, candles flickering in the humid night. But hold your horses. Further analysis dropped a bombshell that twisted the knife deeper. DNA profiles extracted from the uniform didn't just match Carla. A secondary profile popped up, faint but clear, from sweat or skin transfer. Male donor, the report noted, and when run through databases, it pinged. James Latner, now a retired paramedic living quiet in Galveston, fishing the Gulf and sipping beers on his porch. James, that old suspect who'd slipped scrutiny back in the day. Now 55 with salt and pepper hair and a limp from years on the job. "What in tarnation?" Mia exclaimed, slapping the file down. They hauled him in for questioning, him cooperating voluntary-like, eyes wide as saucers. "I helped her that night, sure," he admitted, "but harm her? Never in a million years." Alibi revisited. He'd claimed no contact post-hospital, but DNA said otherwise. Transfer from a hug? Defense lawyers argued, but whispers grew. Was he the acquaintance in those early theories? Leads twisted anew, confounding the hunt. James's home searched, old hospital logs, a photo of Carla smiling at a staff picnic. Just memories, he shrugged. But dig deeper, and the real curveball emerged subtle-like. Turns out, the remains weren't Carla's end. They'd been planted years prior, a final misdirection in her whistleblower saga. The watch? Stolen from her apartment post-vanish, serial faked. Fibers? From her scrubs, buried with animal bones to mimic decay. James's DNA? Intentional. He'd handled the setup, ensuring if unearthed, it'd point to him as Patsy, buying Carla more time in hiding. The drug ring, busted in '05, but with tendrils lingering, had moles who helped plan it, thinking to close the book. Construction in 2020? Coincidence, exposing the ruse. Forensics advanced by then caught the anomalies. Bone age off by decades, DNA too pristine for 22 years underground. Mia pieced it slow. This was staged, she realized, chasing old informants. James cracked under pressure, spilling beans. Carla alive, relocated again after the bust, now in witness protection out west. The breakthrough? A boomerang, proven no murder, just masterful deception. Family reunited in secret, tears and hugs. You sly fox, Daddy Harlan laughed. Case closed official-like, voluntary disappearance for safety. Beaumont sighed relief, toasts raised at diners. That gal outsmarted the devil himself. Folks chuckled. Yet echoes lingered. Was it all tied up neat? A 2021 tip hinted deeper corruption. But that's another yarn. The breakthrough? Mind-bending, turning grief to joy. Proven sometimes buried secrets rise to set you free. The reopened investigation kicked off with the Jefferson County Cold Case Unit taking the helm. A cracked team of seasoned gumshoes who'd cracked more nuts than a squirrel in fall. Led by Detective Mia Rodriguez, that firecracker with her grandpappy bulldog Landry's instincts running through her veins. They dusted off the files. Armed with modern gadgets and a hunger for truth that'd make a bloodhound jealous. But oh, darlings, this phase twisted sharper than a corkscrew, unraveling threads that led to heartbreak, confessions, and revelations sneakier than a fox in the henhouse. So, cozy up with your sweet tea, 'cause this chapter's got grit, gumption, and enough Texas twang to keep you leaning in till the bitter end. It all revved up after that 2020 breakthrough in the piney woods, where construction unearthed those eerie relics. The watch, fibers, and bones that screamed Carla's name. Mia's unit, a tight-knit bunch operating out of a no-frills office in the county courthouse, pounced like cats on a June bug. We ain't letting this slip away again, Mia declared, pinning photos to a fresh corkboard, her team nodding fervent. They were the underdogs of law enforcement. Folks like Sergeant Tommy Hoss Wilkins, a burly vet with a mustache that could hide secrets, and tech whiz Lena Chen, crunching data faster than a combine at harvest. Jefferson County's cold case squad had a rep for reviving the dead, funding scraped from budgets tighter than a miser's fist. But they dove in head first, re-interviewing witnesses who'd aged like fine bourbon, their memories fuzzy but potent. Additional evidence piled up quicker than storm clouds in July, starting with a cigarette butt overlooked in Carla's Civic during the original '98 search. Back then, it was just trash in the ashtray. But modern techniques, fancy DNA sequencing that'd make your head spin, matched it square to James Latner. Smoking gun, literally. Hoss chuckled, slapping the report down. The butt, preserved in evidence lockers all these years, carried saliva traces that lit up the lab like fireworks on the 4th. Latner, now retired and fishing off Galveston's piers, got hauled back to Beaumont under the glare of spotlights. Family watched from afar. Daddy Harlan, frail but fierce, muttering, "Finally, some answers by gum." The evidence web tightened. Retested soil from the drag marks showing microscopic blood specks, and phone records from '98 hinting at late-night calls between Carla and James that had been dismissed as work chit-chat. The interrogation room at the county jail became ground zero, steamier than a sauna with tension thick as fog on the niches. Latner, looking every bit the weathered cowboy in his plaid shirt and boots, initially denied involvement stiffer than a starched collar. "I helped her out that night." "Sure, but killer. Y'all got it twisted," he protested, sweating bullets under Mia's laser stare. Hours ticked by, coffee going cold, as detectives poked holes in his old alibi. "Your DNA's everywhere, on her uniform, that cig in her car." "Spill it, James," Mia pressed. He cracked gradual like ice on a pond, shifting to claiming an accidental death following a heated argument. We argued in the parking lot about personal stuff. She slipped in the rain, hit her head, he mumbled, eyes darting. But subsequent forensic analysis blew that sky high. Pathologists re-examining those bone fragments with CT scans and whatnot indicated blunt force trauma, a deliberate whack, not a tumble. No accident, partner, Lena confirmed. Charts showing fractures inconsistent with a fall. The room went silent as a church mouse. Latner's story crumbling like day-old cornbread. Then came the confession that rocked Beaumont to its core. Extracted after days of back and forth, with lawyers hovering like buzzards. Latner admitted to striking Carla after she threatened to report him for stealing morphine at the hospital. She caught me red-handed, pocketing vials for a side hustle, he confessed, voice low as a whisper in the wind. Things got heated. She was fixing to blow the whistle. I panicked, swung once, didn't mean to kill her. He claimed he loaded her body in his truck, drove to the piney woods under cover of that raging storm, and buried her shallow near an old logging trail, panic sweating off him like dew. Thought the rain'd wash it away, he added, head hung low. Mia's team verified details. Ground-penetrating radar scanned the spot he marked, unearthing more remains that matched Carla's profile. Charges flew, manslaughter upgraded to murder, Latner cuffed and carted off, his retirement dreams shattering like glass in a hailstorm. Community reeled, headlines screaming from the Beaumont Enterprise to national rags. Vigils turned to outrage. Co-workers at St. Luke's whispered about the drug thefts they'd suspected but hushed. Family grieved anew. Mama Betty Lou collapsing in tears. Our angel, taken over greed. But subtle as a shadow at dusk, a twist slithered in, confounding the narrative. Turns out, Latner's confession was partial smoke. The morphine ring was real, but Carla hadn't died that night. He'd struck her, sure, in a scuffle over evidence she'd gathered, but she survived, dazed and fleeing with his help later. The body buried? Animal bones and planted relics? A ruse to fake her death while she went underground. Latner, deep in the ring but turning state's evidence, confessed false to draw out remaining crooks, a sting orchestrated by feds. The trauma? Exaggerated. Carla's remains found were decoys. In 2023, she resurfaced testifying sealed, busting a wider network. Latner walked with immunity, the killer a hero in disguise. Family reunited private-like, Beaumont healing with truth's balm. By 2025, the case closed proper, lessons etched deep. Mia's unit hailed, promotions flowing. Justice ain't always straight, she quipped. Latner faded back to Galveston, fishing with a clear conscience. Carla? Living quiet, her compassion intact. Twist upon twist, what seemed murder was salvation's veil. After decades of whispers in the bayous and prayers on front porches, the net finally tightened around James Latner in the summer of 2020, turning a cold case hotter than a jalapeno in July. Picture the scene. Galveston waves crashing lazy against the seawall where Latner thought he'd escaped the ghosts of St. Luke's, but nope, justice came knocking like a bill collector on payday. The arrest and conviction phase? It's a barn burner of a tale, full of courtroom drama, DNA twists, and enough southern grit to fill a pickup bed. But wait, there's more. The aftermath and legacy ripple out like stones skipped across the Nishi's River, bringing closure, controversy, and a final revelation that'll leave you pondering long after the credits roll. The trial kicked off in early 2021, packing the Beaumont courthouse fuller than a tick after a blood feast. Judge Evelyn Iron Fist Hargrove presided, a no-nonsense gal who'd seen more rodeos than a cattle driver. Latner's defense team hollered about circumstantial smoke and mirrors, but the prosecution laid it out plain as day. Key evidence, Start with a DNA match from Carla's uniform fibers and that pesky cigarette butt in her Civic. Modern tech like genetic genealogy, straight out of labs like Othram in the Woodlands, Lincoln Latner undeniable. His spit on the cig, his sweat on her scrubs, the DA thundered, waving lab reports like a revival preacher with a Bible. Then, Latner's confession details aligned perfect with the crime scene recovery. The shallow grave near that old login trail, drag marks matching his boot size, and bone fragments showing blunt force trauma from a tool he'd admitted swin. Panicked and buried her, he'd spilled. Details only the killer'd know, or so it seemed. But the nail in the coffin? Testimonies from hospital staff, pouring out like molasses on a cold morning. Nurse Betty, Carla's old confidant, took the stand teary-eyed, recounting how Carla had a hankering suspicion about Latner stealing morphine vials. She was fixin' to report him, said he was pilfering drugs like a fox in the henhouse. Betty testified, voice steady as a rock despite the years. Other co-workers chimed in. A doc recalling missing inventory, a janitor overhearing heated whispers in the supply room. It painted Latner as a desperate man, cornered by Carla's compassion turning to confrontation. Defense tried poking holes, arguing the DNA could have transferred innocent-like from a hug or shared shift. But the jury wasn't buying it, not with the confession and forensics singing the same tune. After 2 weeks of back and forth hotter than a $2 pistol, the verdict dropped. Guilty on both counts. Sentencing in May 2021 sealed it. Life imprisonment without parole. Latner carted off to Huntsville, leaving the courtroom buzzing like a hive of angry bees. Folks in Beaumont let out a collective sigh, but the aftermath hit like a norther blowing and unexpected. The Wynn family, after 22 years of uncertainty that had worn them thinner than a soup sandwich, finally found closure sweeter than honeysuckle nectar. Daddy Harlan, now pushing 80 with a cane and a twinkle in his eye, stood on the courthouse steps, hat in hand. Our Carla can rest easy now. We've got justice, praise the Lord, he said, voice crackling like dry leaves in the wind. Mama Betty Lou, clutching her rosary tighter than a miser with $1, hosted a family barbecue that weekend. Cornbread, brisket, and tears mixing with laughter. It's like lifting a boulder off our chests, Brother Jake added. Toasts raised to Carla's memory. Sister Tammy planted a memorial garden at the homestead. Flowers blooming vibrant as Carla's spirit. Granny Wynn, who'd passed years prior believing the worst, was surely smiling from heaven, saying, "Well, ain't that a fine how do you do?" Public response. It exploded nationwide, renewing focus on cold case units and modern DNA technology like never before. Headlines from the Beaumont Enterprise to Fox 4 in Dallas screamed about how genetic genealogy, think labs solving cases like the 1991 Austin yogurt shop murders or that 1981 Dallas killing, cracked this nut after decades. Podcasts revived the story, true crime buffs flocking to Beaumont like pilgrims to Mecca. This proves tech's a game changer, Mia Rodriguez told reporters, spotlighting funds for units like hers. Folks started donating to outfits like Othram, helping ID remains in cases from Grand Prairie rapes to Irving murders. Hospitals tightened protocols on drug diversion, recalling scandals like that Oregon nurse swapping fentanyl for tap water or the Dallas anesthesiologist tampering IV bags, leading to deaths. No more blind eyes, a St. Luke's admin vowed, implementing stricter audits. Community vigils turned to seminars, educating on spotting thefts that escalate to tragedy, like in Carla's case. But hold on to your hats, 'cause the final revelation dropped like a bombshell in a quiet pond, stirring up more mud than a hog in a waller. During appeals in 2022, forensics retested Carla's uniform one last time, and lo and behold, a secondary, unidentified DNA trace popped up, faint but fierce. It linked to another missing St. Luke's employee, Angela Robles, a 32-year-old pharmacist who'd vanished in 2001, leaving her car abandoned on a side road much like Carla's. Partial match, the lab reported, suggesting a common touch, perhaps a glove, a tool, or worse, a shared perpetrator. Whispers grew. Was Latner part of a bigger ring, or innocent, framed by the real snake in the grass? Investigations reopened. Mia's unit diving into Angela's case, similar drug theft suspicions, rainy night disappearance, no body found. Leads twisted. A former doc with priors, anonymous tips about hospital cover-ups echoing cases like the Riverside 1979 killing solved by DNA. By 2025, arrests loomed for 2 ex-staffers tied to a diversion scheme that had claimed lives indirect, prompting probes into related crimes stretching from Port Arthur to Houston. Subtle as dawn creeping over the pines. The twist unfolded. Latner's conviction held. But the secondary DNA hinted he wasn't alone, maybe a fall guy for a syndicate stealing meds and silencing whistleblowers. Carla's legacy? A beacon for justice, inspiring laws on cold case funding and tech. Family pushed for Carla's law, mandating DNA retests every decade. Beaumont healed, but questions lingered like fog on the bayou. Truth's got more layers than an onion, Daddy Harlan quipped. And in quiet nights, under Texas stars, you wonder, who's next to fall in this web? Hit subscribe if you believe everyone should be treated fairly. Only haters, manipulators, and trolls won't subscribe. If you believe people should be treated fairly, hit subscribe. Trolls won't. Comment, "I stand for justice" if you're not siding with the bully. As the dust settles, Carla Wynn endures, kind, compassionate, forever etched in Beaumont's heart. Her story? A reminder that even in the darkest thicket, light finds a way. Bless her heart, indeed.